Are you prepared to successfully transition your investments to and through your retirement? Hi, I'm Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined by Michael Mare. He is the Executive Vice President of Nova Financial. There's an important shift in transition that has to happen as we approach and enter retirement, and that's what we're going to be covering today is when should you change your investment allocations? Michael, so much goes into this conversation. What comes to the top of your mind when we think about making that shift and that transition?
Well, foremost, I need to know the client. I need to know everything about their financial situation. Traditionally, people think, oh, yes, you just shift to fixed income in retirement and just the only goal is to produce income. Well, that's not always the case. That's typically not the case, in fact, because retirement now can be a long time. It can be up to 30 years, depending on when you retire. But people live pretty long and they retire pretty early sometimes. But you can be 20, 30 years in retirement. And we have a inflation rate that averages historically about 3%. We all know it. Sometimes it's much higher than that. So we really, for most people, can't afford just to go into fixed income. So we have to shift to a fixed income and equity portfolio with some guarantees built in as well. But your question was when? Often people make the mistake of doing it too early. Again, back to because we have to deal with inflation. Typically, in a 10-year period, the market's typically up about 7 years and down about 3 years. So if you're inside, a year or 2, 3 to retirement, we definitely want to be more careful. So we're going to pull back on the reins a little bit. 5 years or so, pull back on the reins. But I say that kind of cautiously because it doesn't mean you just, boom, go conservative. We can't really afford for most people to be overly conservative. And that's a mistake some people make. Now, got to kind of put asterisks all over this because there's all these conditions that make the answer, like I said, they're custom answers to each person.
Right.
If we're dealing with somebody with a $5 million portfolio, then it's very different than if we're dealing with somebody with a $500,000 portfolio.
Right.
One can afford a lot more stuff happening in their portfolio. So we can potentially take larger parts of the portfolio and stay in more aggressive positions. Whereas somebody with less, we have to kind of build in a very safe system that will ensure that their needs are met in retirement. But if you want a simple answer, when do we do it? We want to be looking at it about 5 years out from retirement. But again, that doesn't mean we just yank the reins and bring it all to being a conservative portfolio. Portfolios have to keep growing, even in retirement.
Yes, because at that long-term historical rate of 3% per year with inflation, the cost of living doubles every 24 years. Well, think about how much longer folks are living in retirement. Your cost of living could easily double 2 or 3 times throughout the rest of your life.
Exactly.
And so when folks come in to meet with you, how are you able to accurately assess their risk tolerance and maybe even more importantly, their risk capacity?
Yeah. Well, we have financial questionnaires and I talk to them. We take quizzes and because, in our society, everything has to be on paper and documented. So we do that. But really, I get a feel for how clients need to be invested through in-depth discussions. Because sometimes people will answer something one way and then when you talk to them, oh, I thought I should answer it that way, but the reality is maybe different.
Or when you put a monetary amount to it, right?
Right. And so, I'm really aggressive and, but then, okay, what happens when your portfolio goes down 20,000? Can you really
stomach it?
Stomach that?
Yep.
No, that'd be terrible. So, okay, let's take a look at that again, So, yes, we have the systems of determining it, but it's really in knowing the clients, in depth knowing them, that we come up with the best suitability standards, and then how we need to position them in retirement. Obviously, as you move into retirement, you have to be creating income, but we also can't ignore that growth portion that's going to be our hedge against inflation.
Well, like so much else in the area of personal finance, the answer is often it depends, and it depends on your individual unique situation. If you would like help figuring out how much risk your investment should be taking at what stage of your retirement life, we encourage you to reach out to the team of Nova Financial and receive your very own complimentary financial plan. To do so, you can connect online by visiting novafinancialcolorado.com or simply call the number on your screen below.